I used to believe marriage was built on trust, respect, and the ability to put each other above everyone else. When I married Emily, I thought we had that. She was my safe place, my anchor. For years, I convinced myself that nothing could ever shake the bond we shared. But I was wrong, because sometimes the cracks don't show until it's far too late. It started subtly, the way her phone lit up late at night with messages from Ryan. He was her best friend since high school, someone she claimed was like family. At first, I brushed it off. I wasn't the jealous type, and I wanted to trust her. She always reassured me with the same words. "You're my husband. He's just a friend." But just a friend doesn't call every evening. Just a friend doesn't show up at our house unannounced, sitting on our couch for hours as if it were his own. And just a friend doesn't get to know things about my wife before I do. I noticed how Emily's laughter was louder when Ryan was around, how her eyes sparkled differently, and how her phone seemed glued to her hand whenever his name appeared on the screen. One night, as I walked into the living room, I overheard them on a call. Emily was lying on the couch, smiling softly, whispering like a teenager with a crush. My stomach twisted. When she saw me, she jumped, as though caught doing something wrong. "Who was that?" I asked, even though I already knew. "Ryan," she replied quickly. "We were just catching up." The word "just" became her shield, the thin veil she thought could hide what was happening. I tried to ignore the unease, but it gnawed at me, hollowing out every ounce of peace I once had in our home. The breaking point came one quiet Sunday afternoon. We were sitting at the dining table, sipping coffee. Out of nowhere, Emily leaned forward, her tone hesitant but deliberate. "There's something I want to talk to you about," she began. I set my cup down, bracing myself. I think Ryan should be a bigger part of our lives. Our marriage, I mean." Her words cut through the air like a blade. I stared at her, trying to understand if I'd heard her correctly. "What exactly do you mean by that?" She didn't flinch. "He's always been there for me. He understands me in ways no one else does. I don't think it's fair to shut him out just because we're married. I want him involved. I want him to be part of us." Her words didn't just sting. They shattered something deep inside me. I searched her face for a trace of hesitation. Some flicker that she realized how insane this sounded. But Emily's expression was calm, almost defiant, as though she had been rehearsing this moment in her mind for weeks. "You want your best friend to be part of our marriage?" I asked slowly, making sure I hadn't misheard. "Yes," she said firmly. "I don't mean in a romantic way. Well, not exactly. I just think you need to accept that Ryan and I share a bond you'll never fully understand. If you love me, you'll learn to live with that." The confidence in her voice made my blood run cold. It wasn't a suggestion. It was an ultimatum disguised as honesty. I sat there, silent, my hands pressed flat against the table, trying to steady myself. "Emily," I whispered, "marriage is supposed to be between two people. Just you and me. Not you, me, and Ryan." She rolled her eyes, frustration seeping into her tone. "You're being insecure. This is exactly why I didn't want to bring it up sooner. You always think in black and white. Relationships aren't that simple." I laughed bitterly, though nothing about it was funny. "Not that simple? Emily, what you're asking is for me to accept another man in the center of our marriage. You're basically saying I'll never be enough for you." Her face softened slightly, but her words remained sharp. "It's not about you not being enough. It's about me not having to cut off someone who's been part of my life forever. I thought you'd understand. I thought you'd love me enough to allow it." That word, allow, echoed in my chest like a hammer against glass. This wasn't love anymore. This was control. This was manipulation dressed up as honesty. The rest of the day passed in a haze. I moved through the house like a ghost, my mind replaying her words again and again. Every corner of our home suddenly felt foreign, tainted by the shadow of another man's presence. That night, when Emily slipped into bed beside me, I couldn't even bring myself to look at her. The warmth we once shared had turned into a wall of ice. For days I said nothing. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I didn't try to convince her of how wrong she was. I simply withdrew into silence, letting her believe whatever she wanted. She mistook my quiet for compliance, smiling at her phone more often, laughing freely during late-night calls with Ryan while I sat in the dark, staring at the ceiling. But inside me, a decision was taking shape. I realized I couldn't fight for someone who was already willing to share what should have been sacred. So I began to prepare, not for a confrontation, but for an exit. The morning I left, the sky was gray, heavy with clouds that seemed to mirror the weight in my chest. Emily was still asleep, curled comfortably under the blankets as though nothing was wrong, as though the words she had spoken hadn't burned through the foundation of everything we built together. I stood there for a long time, just looking at her, remembering the girl I had once fallen in love with. The laughter, the late-night talks, the way she used to look at me like I was the only person in the room. Somewhere along the way, that version of her had vanished, replaced by someone I no longer recognized. Someone who believed love could be shared without limits, even if it destroyed the very bond that held us together. I didn't leave a note. I didn't pack much, just a bag with a few clothes and the essentials. I didn't want explanations or dramatic goodbyes. She had already made her choice. I was just giving her the silence she had earned. As I closed the door behind me, a strange calm settled over me. No shouting, no slammed doors, no final arguments. Just silence. The same silence I had carried in my chest since the day she told me Ryan belonged in our marriage. Days turned into weeks and soon word got around. Friends called, confused. Her family reached out, demanding answers. But I didn't explain. I owed no one an explanation. What was there to say? That my wife loved me, but not enough to keep another man at arm's length? That she wanted to build a marriage that had 3 corners instead of 2? One evening, weeks later, I heard from a mutual friend that Emily was furious. Not heartbroken, furious. She couldn't believe I had simply walked out without a fight, without trying to change her mind. In her world, love meant bending, compromising until you broke. But in mine, love meant respect. And the day she chose to test the limits of that respect was the day I realized she had already lost me. Do I regret walking away in silence? Sometimes I wonder if words could have changed anything. If one final conversation would have made her see the damage she was doing. But then I remember the conviction in her voice when she said Ryan's name. The calm certainty that I would never be enough. And I know, deep down, that silence was the loudest answer I could have given her. Life has a way of teaching you lessons you never asked for. Mine was simple. Love should never make you compete for a place that should already be yours. And so, I left. Not because I stopped loving her, but because I finally started loving myself enough to walk away.